Public Safety Commission is reformed after a brief recess. We're going to continue with public comment, and we have one today on the Compassionate Use Program, Mr. Aaron Lopez. Mr. Lopez, are you here? Yes.
Good morning. I just want to recognize commissioners. I understand and I recognize the somberness of the situation. And you had an agenda item, and we'd like to go ahead and address that. I'm here to speak on the medical cannabis program.
Welcome.
My name is Aaron. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Can you pull the microphone up a little
Yep.
bit? Thank you.
Does that sound a little better? Okay,
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. Good morning. My name is Aaron Lopez. Thank you, commissioners, for the opportunity to come and speak with you. I represent Blue Bonnet, a Texas-based group that is interested in partaking in the Texas medical cannabis market. I've been in this space for roughly, for the better part of 10 years across the country. I've been working with Blue Bonnet in various markets from California to Virginia, working with gaining licenses, manufacturing, production. We've seen success in many states in the fragmented market that is the cannabis space. Every state is different. And I'd like to commend the commission for the progress that it has made over the last several years. I've monitored the program, seen the deliberate growth, and seen the explosion, if you will, over the last 18 months in the patient population. I do want to ask a question on what does the commission see as a success for the market and for Texas? Is it based on patient access? If it's just on patient access, we could see one company that could open up, in this market, open up 100,000 square feet with, small little overnight storage facilities across the state that could meet, get a product to a single patient. Is it based on a competitive marketplace? We've seen Oklahoma, where they have over 10,000 licenses in the state. The regulatory commission there has a very rough time overseeing that market. Is it based on pharmaceutical-grade products, patient education, job creation? As other persons have commented in these commission meetings before, Texas was originally going to require 12 licenses to ensure statewide access at this time. This was based on a single condition market where each facility would grow, produce, and then sell from that single location. This is a regulatory structure very similar to other states. We see that in Virginia. We see that in other states looking to do that. South Carolina is looking to implement a product like that as well. It is our belief that the answer could be all of the above. Texans deserve operators in our state with a strong background in medical cannabis and pharmaceutical processing with a highly regulated market focused on product quality, patient access, and patient educations. Texans deserve a highly competitive market with a diversity of choice. There was the discussion last meeting on overnight storage, allowing for a license to transport products to a pickup site, and due to logistical issues, allow for products to remain at that pickup location. This was not anticipated, nor is it in the regs or statutes, nor do I believe that this was the legislative intent by the House and Senate, leaving the industry without a set of guidelines on how to store these products. While I understand the logistical needs and burdens undertaken, it creates a security risk. This drastically increases the risk of diversion, misappropriation, and theft. Creating many warehouses will not solve the problem. An increase in licenses will organically spread across the state, creating an infrastructure to meet the needs of the patients. The patient population in Texas is potentially a very large one compared to many other markets across the country. Relying on 3 licenses to meet these needs could prove an issue for patient access. We saw recently in the news where infant formula, is being produced by 4 major suppliers. One of them went down for repairs, which caused a ripple effect across the country, causing importation of products not meeting FDA guidelines to be imported. So we want to make sure that we're always available and able to provide access to our patients. Now, I understand that Texas wishes to ensure access to all of its patients, and other states have initiated a variety of controls and to prevent potential monopolies. Missouri, New Jersey, and Ohio limit total size of growing operations to prevent any one licensee from exerting control over the market. Therefore, I would like to request from the Commission to consider the following: a competitive expansion to the Texas medical market based on best practices taken from other medical cannabis states, including but not limited to issuance of additional license to best serve the patients of the state at a reasonable ratio. This could be anywhere between 10 to 15. We do not have to use the example of Oklahoma, where you're flooding the market. This will increase competition and decrease expenses currently incurred by those licenses willing to transport around the state. It'll limit the size of production facilities like Missouri and Pennsylvania and Ohio to prevent monopolization. Limit the number of retail locations per licensee like West Virginia, Missouri, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, etc. I'm happy to be a resource to this. I understand that moving forward, you guys will be looking into this, and the Commission will be studying this even more. Happy to serve and help on any advisory moving forward, an advisory committee moving forward. Thank you for the time, and happy to answer any questions if you have some.
And to confirm, Mr. Lopez, you represent a potential
Blue Bonnet, yes,
Yeah,
a Texas-based group, yeah.
Okay.
And we like I said, we currently are operational in several other states.
Okay. Commissioners, anything? I would just ask that if you send us a letter as well to reinforce what you said today, and we'll take that all under advisement. Appreciate your taking the time to be here today.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Is there anybody else in the room wishing to give public comment on compassionate use? Okay. We also have a public comment card, but this person will not be speaking, but is here today, Attorney Steve Bresnan, to speak on catalytic converters. Again, he's not speaking, but he did provide the Commission a letter for our review. So thank you, Mr. Bresnan, for being here. And that, unless there is anybody else wishing to give public comment, speak now. Public comment is closed for this meeting. Thank you all for taking the time to be here. We'll move on to item 7 on the agenda, the continuation of the Director's report, item A. Director McCraw.
Yeah, Director, I have no additional information at this point in time.
This is on the case update.
Well, do we have that prepared to go?
Or we can come back to that. Why don't we come back to that after new business?
Yeah.
All right, moving on to item 8 on the agenda, new business. Update discussion regarding the Texas Ranger Bicentennial. I believe Russell Molina is not here today. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
So we'll move on to item B, report and discussion on the FY22 Customer Service Survey. Dr. Noel Langet. Good morning.
Hey, good morning. Oh, there it is. Great. Good morning. My name's Noel Landit. I work and teach down the road a little bit at the University of Texas at Austin. We are the research institute that does customer service evaluation for the agency. Just as a brief overview, we've been doing this since 2000, since the state passed the Texas Customer Service Standards Act back in 1999. And we look at customer service from the perspective of what drives service at driver's license offices. And so we look at time and process and staff and trust and fairness and overall. And we've been measuring that consistently, and the agency scores pretty well on that. So we continue to do that survey. We also are always looking at the appointment system to see how well the appointment system works at driver's license office. There's a big no-show rate at driver's license office, so we do a special survey trying to get a better evaluation on that. And when I was here last time, or a couple times ago, we talked about doing some focused interviews, and we completed those, so I have some more information about that. As we move forward into 2023, we're going to expand the number of services that we evaluate, and so we're going to be able to provide even more data to the agency. We're going to pilot a qualitative analysis piece to see whether or not qualitative people entering comments is able to give us some better information to subsidize the quantitative data that we receive. And we're going to continue to recommend an additional, if you will, on-site focus interviews, focus process, because we learned a lot from the focus groups that we've done. So on the next slide, you'll kind of see that we maintain a 9 out of 10 positive customer satisfaction rating. That's really strong. Again, that's up from about 50% 8 years ago. We're maintaining at that 90% level. And also when we ask citizens, do they trust driver's license office to do a good job? 90% of them say that they do. When we ask them what was their interaction with staff, 9 out of 10 say that it was a good interaction with staff. So that's very positive. And when we look at kind of what continues to be the highest levels of dissatisfaction, it's understanding the overall process. It causes confusion. Documentation really still continues to be an issue on the documentation people need in order to get the service that they bring. And then wait times in certain areas in certain offices, depending on the volume. So that's kind of the continuing summary. 75% strongly agree that the process works pretty good. That's down a little bit from last year, but again, 2 points don't make a trend, so don't know that. 9 out of 10 do like the appointment system. Dissatisfaction continues to be linked towards, particularly in busy metropolitan areas, the time and location and availability of appointments, that there's not enough appointments. So as we move to the next slide, with our no-show survey, which still tends to be the big issue with agents, with individuals coming, 66% who miss realize the day of the appointment. So if they're going to miss, and about 1 out of 4 miss their appointment, about 2/3 of them don't realize it till the day, right? So what do? We try to send out more reminders. About 50% say they don't get the reminders. 20%, 80% want more reminders. And we all see this happening every day. You go to the doctor's office, you get several reminders, right? So the reminder process that. And 30% feel as though 30% indicate that work or illness or other conflict led to them not attending. So those are kind of the big issues surrounding what we're kind of recommending to go forward as we look at the next slide. From the focus groups that we did, we went across the state, Austin, Dallas, El Paso, Houston, Lubbock, McAllen, and Tyler, trying to get a good sense. And what we found is that individuals, again, this was specifically looking at people not feeling though they had the right documentation when they showed up, is that the agency, what we're recommending is there needs to be a before you go campaign. You know, before you go to the office, here's what you need to bring, right? When they get to the office on their appointment, staff is very good at telling them what they're missing. Unfortunately, they're already at the office, have to go home, make another appointment, which clogs up the system. So we're really looking at a before you go campaign, and then working to develop some statewide resources maybe to help them along that line so that they have the documents that they need before they get to the office. If they get to the office and they can successfully complete the transaction, they're not going to have to make another appointment. They're not going to have to take another time. They don't have to take the inconvenience. They don't have to take off from work. So it's just a better system. And kind of what we're recommending is probably go out in the field a little more and find out what resources are available from the various offices that are being successful, looking for best practices and bringing that back for the whole agency. So overall, customer service continues to be strong. There's still some areas for improvement, and we're actively working to try to help out in that area.
I guess I have a question with the reminder thing. I think when I forget something, I forget to put it on my calendar. I make the appointment, then I forget. And oftentimes getting some sort of for people who are using email actively, getting or a text from the agency as soon as the appointment is made to accept a calendar item, that automatically populates to their calendar. I would think that would be something that we should consider to the extent technology would allow it. So, to commissioners, any And if Dorothy, you have any comments on that?
I think that's going to be kind of our next steps, is really outlining what those things would be along that line. Certainly multiple reminders would be helpful. You do have a large percentage still of customers that someone else made the appointment for them because they didn't have the technology to do it. So there needs to be multiple ways to do it.
Doctor, one of the slides reported that 66% of the people who make appointments miss their appointments.
1 out of 4.
1 out of 4?
Yeah, of that 1 out, I'm sorry, out of that 1 out of 4, 66% forget about it that day.
Oh, the day of?
Yeah.
Okay. How is that number trending? Is it in the right direction or the wrong direction? Do you recall?
The 25% no-show rate, that's been pretty consistent from what I understand, from the way that we've done the appointment survey, right? That's been fairly consistent. And actually the data, we've only done this twice now with this no-show, and so we're continuing to do that. So again, 2 points don't really make a trend, but it's been pretty consistent.
Okay. So the no-show rate has been consistent over what period of time, and what kinds of things have we been doing to try to impact that, but apparently are not making a positive impact?
That is a driver's license division question specifically. So I look back, and I don't know if Sherry Gibson has an answer for that or not. We're just providing the data as to what we see people's perceptions as why they didn't attend.
Okay.
I'm going to put Sherry on the
Ms.
spot.
Gibson.
Good morning, Sherry Gibson, DL Chief. So it has been consistent since we implemented the appointment solution in 2020. We've ranged between anywhere between 24 to 30%. What we've done is we try and work with the customers to make sure, send reminders and tell them, if you're not going to make the appointment, just please cancel it, because then that makes it available for someone else. We are currently in the process of rebidding the appointment solution, and a lot of the lessons learned over the last couple of years are going to be incorporated in that, with some additional things like the reminders, the adding it to appointments, the ability, like a doctor's office, because right now you have to physically make the effort to go out and cancel it. So like the doctor's office will say, either confirm, or if you don't confirm, we're going to cancel the appointment. So then it opens it up to another individual.
Okay. So in the short period of time, the couple of years this system's been in place, you're taking what we've learned and working to improve it, maybe even getting another contractor to handle it.
Correct.
Okay.
And when we started the appointment solution, nationwide, the states that put appointment solutions in place for COVID had a 25, some as high as 50% no-show rates. So we were consistent with what other states were seeing.
Thank you.
I would just suggest on that, if you automatically cancel somebody for not replying to the text or whatever, that there be some grace allowed for when they do show up to the DL office that day for their appointment and didn't realize they were supposed to reply, because a lot of those are reminders. They're not affirmative action required.
Right.
And so,
Yes, sir. And even now, when we have individuals who show up late or the next day because they got the date wrong, we make every effort to try and get them in that same day.
and I know you do. Y'all do incredible work. I was thinking about your 9 out of 10 customer service satisfaction, and I anecdotally report to people that 9 out of 10 people who call me with comments about DL are saying nice or great things, and it's the 1 out of 10 that have a real issue. But the change in customer service, the perception amongst the public about how well the department and the division is doing its job has changed dramatically over the time I've been on the commission. So I want to thank you all, and thank you for providing us with the data, the real data to back up what we feel to be the case.
And Mr. Chairman, I can honestly say that in our focus interviews and the observations that we had, the staff gives a lot of grace and a lot of patience, and they really are very good at working with the customers that come to the door.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
One item before we move on to the next on the agenda. I think, Director, if it's okay with you, I'm going to move your case update under Director's Report to item 10 on the agenda, if that's okay with you. Or right before item 10. Now, going back to item 8, new business, section C, report discussion, possible action on the contract review board charter. Chief Ballou.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners. Jessica Ballou, Chief of Infrastructure Operations. The Chief Auditor's Office, as you will recall, conducted advisory services on the Contract Review Board. And I would like to take a quick moment to share that I'm very grateful for our Chief Auditor's team because they don't simply just focus on transactional samplings. They also really take a look, more of a process-oriented approach, and that, I think, enables our internal operations to focus on the more valuable and sustainable improvements that we need to manage and the risk that we need to assess and ways to remain compliant. So I do want to take a moment to thank them. As a result of that advisory, we developed a proposed CRB charter, and we've piloted the associated processes for a 12-month period to ensure that we evaluated, assessed, and adjusted it as necessary to provide optimal value, effectiveness, and efficiency. I've provided a copy of the proposed charter for each of you in your binder. In a nutshell, the changes further strengthen our CRB process by enabling some key improvements, including putting the focus on the items that truly present the most risk. So this gives us the opportunity to take a deeper dive and do a more in-depth analysis on higher risk items. It also positions our key executives internally to continuously assess progress and risk throughout the acquisition process from planning to award, as opposed to a front-end, back-end look approach. Additionally, it provides us with ongoing visibility and assessment opportunities for key executive stakeholders to continuously assess the performance and risk of an active contract. Roles have been clarified to align executive leadership responsibilities to their respective areas of expertise and operations, with shared responsibility to ensure the contract meets best value, is supportable, and that any associated risk is manageable and acceptable. OGC and Procurement and Contract Services will continue to have responsibility for assuring the contract is legally sound and that all procurement rules and requirements have been met. The processes and changes have been vetted and developed with input from experts in General Counsel, Procurement and Contract Services, and leadership from multiple divisions throughout the agency as a result of the advisory service. So I'm here today to request your approval on the revised charter.
Commissioners, are there any questions? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the revised charter of the Contract Review Board.
And I second the motion.
We have a motion from Commissioner Stodgill and a second from Commissioner Wainwright to approve under Section 8 New Business Item C the new charter of the Contract Review Board. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you, Chief. And you are on the next item as well, which is item D, report, discuss, and possible action on the transfer of certain state property from the Department of Public Safety to the City of Eagle Pass.
Yes, sir. Jessica Ballou, Chief of Infrastructure Operations, for the record. DPS received funding for a new facility in Eagle Pass from the 86th session, and House Bill 4667, a copy of which is placed in your binder, directs the Public Safety Commission to transfer the vacated Eagle Pass property to the City of Eagle Pass. All DPS services have relocated to the new facility. A grand opening was held in August. All closeout activities such as surplus property transfers are complete, so we are now officially ready to complete the transition to the city. So I'm here today to request your approval to transfer that ownership.
Any questions, Commissioners?
Just explain to us, and you may have mentioned this previously, the purpose and exactly what's being transferred.
So we previously had a DPS office that was located at 32 Foster Maldonado Boulevard in Eagle Pass. And as a result of some funding that we were provided through the 86th legislative session, we were able to build a build-to-suit lease office in Eagle Pass to give us newer office with more space. And so our DPS employees and assets have moved from that existing or original property at Foster Maldonado Boulevard to the new office location. So it's vacated by DPS. And the legislative intent was that the city could take ownership and leverage that property.
Right. And I do recall now that you mention it, the funding for the new facility. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I'd entertain a motion on this item.
I so move, Mr. Chairman.
I second.
We have a motion from Commissioner Wainwright and a second from Commissioner Stodgill to approve the transfer of certain state property from the Department of Public Safety to the City of Eagle Pass. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you, Chief Blue. Item 8, under new business, Section E, the final determination of contested cases for consideration and possible action on proposals for decision, and I will turn that over to General Counsel Adkins.
Phil Atkins, General Counsel. We have 4 contested cases coming to you for a final decision today. The first one, the department denied the application of Christopher J. Bennett for a non-commissioned security guard license. The applicant is required to register as a sex offender, and that is an automatic disqualifier for a non-commissioned security guard license under the Occupations Code. SOA held a hearing. The administrative law judge upheld the department's decision to deny the application. Second contested case coming before you today, the department suspended Tryon Livingston's commissioned and non-commissioned security guard licenses based on Class A misdemeanor charges of burglary of vehicles. That charge is on the list of disqualifying crimes for a security guard license. Hearing was held before the State Office of Administrative Hearings, and the administrative law judge upheld the suspension of the department by the department. The third case, department denied Drew McKenzie Pascal's application for a security officer commission based upon 2 convictions for DWI within a 10-year period. Under the Occupations Code, 2 convictions within the 10-year period classify him as a chemically dependent individual and statutorily ineligible. State Office of Administrative Hearings held a hearing, and the administrative law judge upheld the denial. The final case, the department suspended the vehicle inspection certificate of Evander Rojas Villa, alleging that he entered inaccurate gross vehicle weight information into emissions testing analyzers on 13 different occasions. A hearing was held, and the administrative law judge upheld the suspension by the department. I would request that the commission adopt the proposal for decision issued by the State Office of Administrative Hearings for each of the 4 contested cases on the docket, on the agenda today.
I'll suggest we take these all together unless the commission wants to pull anyone out in particular. And I'd entertain a motion then.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adopt the proposal for decision on all 4 cases.
I second.
We have a motion from Commissioner Wainwright and a second from Commissioner Stodchill to approve the final determination based on the proposals for decision items under 8 new business E 1 through 4, SOA docket 405-22-2378.PSB Christopher J. Bennett, SOA docket number 405-22-2370.PSB Tryon Livingston, SOA docket number 405-22-2578.PSB Drew Paschal, SOA docket number 405-22-2674.MVI Evander Rojas Villa. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you, Chief Atkins, or General Counsel Atkins. Next item on the agenda is item F under new business, report, discuss, and possible action on the following rule proposal for publication to receive public comment, and that is proposed new 37 TAC section 36.5 concerning sellers of catalytic converters in the ordinary course of business. I would note before Chief Mueller speaks that Mr. Bresnan, who was here for public comment, is urging us to approve this proposal. Chief.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Chairman, Commissioners, good morning. Wayne Mueller, Chief Regulatory Services Division. So as you may recall, last legislative session, in response to the prevalence of catalytic converter theft, the legislature put in place requirements for the metal recycling entities to, when they purchase a used catalytic converter, to record the transaction, including the identity of the seller, as well as adding a transaction and an inventory number physically on the catalytic converter itself. That process, again, was added last legislative session, but the statute also indicates an exception that if the transactions occurring in the ordinary course of business from business to business, then they do not have to do that additional process. Since that time, we've received concerns from several members of the industry seeking some clarity, not wanting to run afoul of that requirement, but doing high volume of used catalytic converter purchases, wanting from the DPS to understand, what businesses would count to be an exemption to their requirement to do that documentation. And so this rule change really was instigated by request from members of the industry, and we agreed that we should try and help them out with some clarity, and the result is the proposed rule that's before you. This proposed rule essentially puts forth a list of different types of businesses that we think make sense and that would fall within the definition of an ordinary course of business. It includes entities such as used and new car dealerships, salvage yards, businesses, garages, and shops that regularly repair vehicles, such as a Midas muffler. Those types of entities are what make up this list. It also accounts for entities that may be a used car dealership or something of the like that has a license that's granted by another state, and it also has a provision that allows for those legitimate businesses that actually import used catalytic converters into the country for the decanting process. Yes, and Mr. Bresnan actually had input on this rule, and we've talked with him several times, and so it's not surprising that he is in support of this. As I usually want to do when we have an advisory committee like we do with the metals recycling program, I asked that they weigh in. This was presented to them at their last meeting, and they did vote to indicate their support for this proposed rule. So at this time, I'd ask that the commission approve placing this in the Texas Register for public comment.
Any questions? I'd entertain a motion.
I so move, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
We have a motion from Commissioner Wainwright and a second from Commissioner Stodchill to post in the Texas Register proposed new 37 TAC section 36.5 concerning sellers of catalytic converters in the ordinary course of business. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. And Chief, don't go far away. Item G under new business is intelligence threat briefing, which requires clearance, and we'll do that in executive session. Before we move on to item 9, ongoing business, I do want to recognize some of our legislative guests here today. We have Suzanne Tomlin from Lieutenant Governor Patrick's office, and online we have Aaron Gibson from Representative Eddie Morales' office, and Aaron Monsivillas from Lieutenant Governor Patrick's office. And I apologize if we missed anybody else present either with us in person or online today. Thank you all for monitoring and for your support of the department. Moving on to item 9 under ongoing business, section A, discussion and possible action regarding the compassionate use program. I'll turn that back over to Chief Mueller and Deputy Director Jeff Williams.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Again, Wayne Mueller, Chief Regulatory Services Division. I wanted to update you on the items that we discussed at the last Public Safety Commission meeting regarding the compassionate use program. First, a follow-up to this chart that's on the screen now is the blue is the same chart that I showed you at the last meeting. As I described before, for the last 18 months, we have seen a significant increase in the growth of patients within the program, approximately averaging about a 10% month-over-month growth, with the acknowledgement that the numbers were so low to begin with that 10% was not necessarily difficult to get to, but it was about a 10% average. And so taking an admittedly aggressive projection outward to the next 18 months, that's what got us to potentially 145,000 or so patients in the program as we approach the end of 2023, December of 2023. The update here is then, as a comparator, the orange lines show that just since the last commission meeting, what we actually saw as far as patient growth for the month of August, month of September, and for the first 2 weeks of October. So as you can see, it does not quite match that more aggressive approach, or excuse me, aggressive model that we put forth. But as I also mentioned at the last commission meeting, a more conservative approach of looking at more maybe of a flat number of, say, an average of 2,500 new patients per month still gets us to approaching 100,000 patients in the program somewhere around the summer of 2024. And what we're seeing with the actual, at least in the small snippet of time of the last 2.5 months, that is still holding true. And so the base premise that I wanted to make to you last meeting still holds true in my view, that the next 18 to 24 months, we should be seeing somewhere in the range of 100,000 patients. I think we will get there. And so again, that's why we're trying to plan now for that eventuality. I also mentioned at the last commission meeting that I want to try and describe going forward the activity and the growth in the program a little bit more robustly than just using that lifetime patient count. That is a useful number, but I don't think it tells the whole picture. What we want to add to that is really describing it in 3 different data points, one being the lifetime patient count, but also the active patient count, and then also milligrams of active ingredients dispensed. Now, we've talked about this quite a bit internally. We finally landed on defining active patient as a patient that has filled at least 1 prescription within the last 6 months. That's intentionally to try and get us to something that feels like it's kind of at the leading edge of what's going on. And as you can see here, that is a comparison of the total patient count to currently, if we count back the last 6 months, what we would then define as active patients. You can see that is quite a big delta, but once again, the active patient count doesn't necessarily give us the full picture. You can easily have a patient that has gotten, say, 6, 7, 9 years worth of 9 months or a year's worth of prescription 7 months ago, and therefore they're not going to count in that number, but certainly are still participating by all accounts in the program. And so again, looking at these 2 numbers side by side, I think is going to be helpful to us going forward. Right now, this is just the first time we're presenting it, so I know it doesn't say a whole lot just looking at a 1 snapshot, but as we get months worth of data, and I believe we will begin to see that ratio. Right now, it's a little bit less than 1/2 to 1. It will never get to be a 1-to-1 ratio, obviously, but as that ratio starts to increase on the blue side, I think that will help get us a better idea of what the most current activity is in the program. Next slide, please. And then the third data point, again, being also showing the milligrams dispensed by month in the program. Again, this is just a snapshot in time, since this is where we're just now starting to report this way. But as you can see, for the last 6 months in the Texas program, we were, for the first 4 months, we were in the range of 5.5 million milligrams of active ingredient dispensed, and then it jumped up to the 6 million range for the last 2 months. Active ingredient meaning the amount of CBD and THC combined in the total medication that is dispensed. And again, recognizing this is just a snapshot in time that doesn't necessarily give you a whole lot of context, I just wanted to describe a comparison to you just for an attempt at some context, comparing to, say, the state of Florida program, which started about the same time. I believe they started 1 year prior to the Texas program. Now, that program is apples to oranges. They do not have any statutory conditions limitation, anything that a physician feels an ailment that medicinal marijuana could help a patient in Florida, they can prescribe for. They also have 2 different categories of low THC and then a no THC cap type of situation. So it is a little bit different, but nonetheless, to try and give you some form of context, compared to the Texas program dispensing 6.1 million milligrams for the month of September, in the state of Florida, they dispensed shy of 230 million milligrams in just the first week of October alone. Now, again, that is them coming out of 22 different dispensing organizations compared to only our 3 licensees, and that is to serve 756,000 qualified patients in the state of Florida. Again, very different, but I wanted to give you some context of where we are right now and just beginning to grow compared to potentially what it could look like somewhere downstream.
Chief, how do you explain the jump between July and August of this year in the total milligrams dispensed?
I cannot, sir. I don't know. I don't have an in the weeds answer for you on that. We can go back and do a little bit of digging and see if there was a little bit of a specific spurt of additional patients, or it may have just been a coming together of patients fill prescriptions at a moment in time. But I don't have a specific answer for you, sir. I'm sorry.
Okay, can you find that out for us?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Sure. Another item that was discussed at the last commission meeting was the concept, and the last commenter referenced an advisory committee. We've also discussed that at quite at length in-house and sought counsel from General Counsel Atkins on that. I'm sorry, next. We do have in the department rules that contemplates a couple of different types of things. There's contemplations for committees that can be for very narrow, specific rule regarding purposes. And then it also contemplates a bit more flexibly and informally something along the lines of a working group. It is my recommendation that be where we start. One of the main reasons for that recommendation is that we are 70-ish days away from the start of legislative session. I would not be surprised if we see a bill that puts forth a statutory advisory committee for the compassionate use program, just like we see in VI, metals, and private security. And so if we do something more informal along the lines of a working group, that will allow us to pivot a little bit easier should the legislature do something, as opposed to putting a full advisory committee into rule. Next slide, please. And so what I am proposing at this time is for us to start with a 9-member working group that would have essentially 3 different classifications. The first area would be 3 representatives, 3 members, 1 each from each of the current licensees. The next group being 3 patient representatives, either patients themselves or the parent or guardian of a minor patient. And the last grouping being 3 physicians that are currently qualified and registered to prescribe under the compassionate use program, with one of those physicians having veterans needs experience to focus on the PTSD condition, and then also 1 physician to have pediatric experience. Now, again, the benefit of doing this as a working group, as that's contemplated under our rules, will allow for us to expand or contract as necessary. I think this is a good starting point. I think it gives us a good combination of representation. But as we start, if we get feedback that there's an entity or individual that could provide insight that these 9 may not be able to, we certainly, again, could grow the group as needed. So that's what we're looking to start with as far as something to respond to as far as an advisory committee.
Chief, let me ask you another question here. I think the composition, having different points of view in the working group that you've laid out here, is going to be very helpful, makes a lot of sense. It seems that all 9 positions, however, are current stakeholders in the system. Do we want input from a entity or person that's not currently a stakeholder? Maybe an application or applicant that doesn't have a license at this point, or someone that's not a current stakeholder. That person or entity could provide another perspective. Do you think that would be helpful?
We have discussed and weighed that. Honestly, to start with, I'm a bit hesitant because I also don't want to get to the flip side of that, where an applicant is chosen to be involved, whereas another applicant is not, because at some point it would become too unwieldy if everybody that has already come forth indicating they want in is then put on a work group. It will be too unwieldy. And so I'm a bit hesitant in how to differentiate on who would make sense versus not. But we have discussed that because your point of that perspective might be helpful as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd appreciate you thinking about if we could get input from someone or person or entity that's not a current stakeholder, perhaps conceptually looking from the outside in to provide another perspective might be helpful.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
To your point, that's why making it a working group is beneficial, because it allows us to make modifications before, say, something is put into a statutory framework.
Yes. Also discussed at the last commission meeting where I described that we've had a set of proposed rules, some cleanup items to the program that have needed to be brought forth for some time. But the two rules of note in addition to that are, again, the storefront rule that we discussed last time, allowing the current licensees to establish permanent satellite locations throughout the state so that they can more quickly take care of the patient's needs. And then the second notable rule in that group would be, you all made clear at the last commission meeting the want for something to be put in place so that there is that we can specifically point to, so that if we have another instance of a licensee that fails to dispense for a significant period of time, that we can point to that rule as the department may take action up into possibly including revocation, depending on what the fact pattern is in that situation. The short of it is we've had some really good conversation internally and gotten some feedback from external stakeholders on all of those rules. The short of it was we were just not satisfied that we had the final version ready when time for the agenda for this meeting. So I do not have them for you today, but we will have them for you at the December meeting. And then lastly, also described at the, or discussed at the last commission meeting was the concept of a consultant procurement. This is something that I still view as very important. While we're in this fledgling stage with this program, I think bringing in a person or an entity that has experience with other state programs that were at the same point earlier in time will give us some vital insight so that we're not trying to reinvent any wheels or running into things that we could learn from them quite easily. I think they can assist with several different aspects of this program as it grows, and of course the main component to that being giving us insight on the timing and the manner in which we bring new licensees into the program. Our procurement department, led by Chief Ballou, has done a fantastic job of getting that procurement together in very short order. The last piece of that, the procurement rules require a finding of fact, which is a document that comes back from the governor's office. And that happens whenever there's a consultant services contract pending. That is the last piece that's necessary. We did put in that finding of fact request to the governor's office, I believe, the week before last. And so we're just waiting for that last piece to come back, at which time we will get that procurement on the street and we will have that expertise in-house as soon as possible and get the benefits of that. And so those are the items I wanted to just update you on regarding the compassionate use program, Chairman. And so at this time, the three action items that I'm requesting from the commission are first, approval to start up the working group with the membership and in the manner that we've described here. Second request is directive from the commission to bring forth the proposed rule set, including the storefront and the failure to dispense rules, to the commission for consideration at the December meeting. And then the third request is directive that, subject to getting the consultant contract completed and then receiving the benefits of that contract, bring forward the framework for additional licensees at either the December meeting or as soon as practical. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
My only question on that last item is that it is in contemplation of expanding the number of licensees, but we don't know exactly what that looks like without more data and study from the consultant. But there's clearly a need to expand the number. We're just not sure what that is, and we need more data before we can do that, which, to your point about the consultant, is key.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. I mean, as I said last meeting, and the numbers still hold true, we do not need another licensee right now today. But the projections clearly show that we are going to need one in the next several months. And so in that in-between time, when is the sweet spot to bring it in? That's where we're looking for some expertise to help us with that. It is a matter of when, but we want to do it right, and we want to do it in a measured approach.
We certainly don't want to be playing catch-up if demand does hit the numbers that you're looking at, or even above.
Yes, sir. And as Commissioner Blair brought up last meeting, we have a legislative session about to start. Our numbers do not contemplate any change to additional conditions or anything else that the legislature may choose to do. So the patient count could move faster. So we're trying to make sure we're ready as soon as possible.
Any further questions, comments? The action items, so would you go over the action items one more time?
Sure.
Clear.
The first item being approval to move forward with the working group as I've described it on the slide.
We have a motion on approving the working group.
I so move, Chairman, with one caveat that in December, we get feedback on getting an outsider perspective added to the working group as well.
A second.
We have a motion from Commissioner Wainwright and a second from Commissioner Stodghill to approve the working group as put forth by Chief Mueller, with the caveat that we look at adding a 10th representative, an additional person who does not have a vested stakeholder interest. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. Chairman.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
The second request, Chairman, is directive to bring the proposed rule changes, including the storefront rule and the fair to dispense rule, to the commission at the December meeting.
Do we have a motion or questions?
No questions.
Questions?
I'd entertain a motion.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion from Commissioner Wainwright and a second from Commissioner Stodghill to approve bringing two rules or requesting that two rules be brought to the commission concerning storefront location, storefront off, or what I call satellite offices, and what was the second one?
It's the storefront and the fair to dispense. And I apologize, Chairman, just to be clear, those are the two marquee ones, but there are several other cleanup rules that'll be there too. I don't have the exact count, but it's probably 6 or 8-ish.
Yeah, and we'll get the next bite at that apple anyway at the next commission meeting. So we'll just to approve the modifications to rules that you've proposed today. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. That motion passes. Thank you.
And then the third request, Chairman, directive to bring forth either at the December meeting or as soon as practical, the framework for the addition of new licensees.
Is there any discussion? Then I'd entertain a motion.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion. I need to have more coffee. A motion from Commissioner Wainwright and a second from Commissioner Stodghill to approve the request to bring forward a proposal for expanding the number of new licenses at the next commission meeting or as soon as practical, based on this consultant question that we're having. So, any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you, Chief. And I should ask, Director Williams, do you have anything to add on that?
Other than compliments for the team working on this, this is very treacherous territory. A lot of emotions surrounding both sides. And so I just want to say thanks to the General Counsel and Wayne's team for working on that. They've been great to work with. As you know, there's a lot of pieces to this. It sounds very simple, but it's not. So they've done a good job.
Yeah, and I just want to thank all the people who have been working around on this issue, not just people within the department, but people from the legislature, from the governor's office, as well as interested stakeholders in their valuable and helpful information that they've provided for us. We very much appreciate it and value your participation as we try to improve this program. So thank you. We'll move on to item B under Section 9, ongoing business, report, discussion, possible action on the adoption of the following previously published rules. The first three will go to Chief Sherry Gibson from Driver's License.
Good morning, Sherry Gibson, Driver License Division. We had 3 rules posted in the Texas Register. Section 15.58 related to changes in the Medical Advisory Board recommendations. Section 15.181 regarding the eligibility for an election identification certificate, and Section 16.5 regarding Texas CDL vision waiver requirements to come in compliance with federal regulations. All 3 rules were posted. There were no comments on any of the 3. So we are recommending the adoption of 37 tax sections 15.58, 15.181, and 16.5, items 9B1, 2, and 3 on the agenda.
Any questions?
One quick question. Chief Gibson, on tax section 15.58, their red line changes. What's the source of those?
The source of those are to come in compliance with both Texas and federal regulations regarding the medical advisory review process.
Okay, so that's you and your staff reviewing it and making sure that it was consistent with the statutory prerequisites?
Correct, and also working with the Department of State Health Services,
Okay, thank
who
you.
houses the Medical Advisory Board review.
I'd entertain a motion.
I so move.
Second.
We have a motion from Commissioner Wainwright and a second from Commissioner Stodgill to approve items 1 through 3 under Section 9B of our agenda, proposed amendments to 37 TAC sections 15.58, 15.181, and 16.5. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you, Chief. Next two items on the agenda, items 4 and 5 under Section B, go to Chief Alanis.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners. Orlando Alaniz, Chief Highway Patrol. Last public safety as well, I introduced you to 2 rule changes and asked to be entered into the Texas Register, which they were, and also did not receive any comments. They were TAC 37, sections 21.2 and 21.3. 21.2 concerning standards for vehicle safety, and 21.3 standard for sunscreening and privacy window device. And no comments. I'm here asking for these rules to be adopted.
Commissioners, any questions?
No questions.
I'd entertain a motion.
I so move.
And I second.
We have a second, I'm sorry, I got to get to the motion first. A motion from Commissioner Stodgill and a second from Commissioner Wainwright to approve all, so items 4 and 5 under Section 9B, ongoing business, which are proposed amendments to 37 TAC sections 21.2 and 21.3. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item C is report, discussion, and possible action regarding modification of the DPS organizational structure and the appointment, promotion, ratification, employment, evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, or dismissal of a member of the department or commission management team. Director McCraw, do you have anything for us?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Chairman, Commissioners. Chance Collins, the Chief of Texas Rangers, will be retiring at the end of this month after 29 years of faithful and dedicated service. With that, it leaves the Texas Ranger Chief position open, and with the advice, consent, and recommendation of the Public Safety Commission is that in his stead, as a replacement, that the Regional Director for South Texas or Southeast Texas, Jason Taylor, become the next Texas Ranger Chief. Jason Taylor, I'm a better because the other one is not eligible. It's Taylor, by the way.
Yeah, I'm kind of inclined to vote against this one because I don't want to lose him in Southeast Texas. He's been an outstanding regional director, and we hate to lose him, but it's the Rangers' gain for sure. I'd entertain a motion to approve that appointment.
I so move.
And I second.
We have a motion from Commissioner Stodgill and a second from Commissioner Wainwright to approve the appointment of Jason Taylor as Chief of the Texas Rangers. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Congratulations.
Yep. And with our new Ranger Chief, with that promotion, it leaves a vacancy in Southeast Texas, as you're well aware. And At this time, I would like to recommend the former, or the Assistant Chief of Criminal Investigative Division, Gerald Brown, to become the next Regional Director of Southeast Texas.
And I will just say, from my standpoint on this, I've worked with Gerald for years in Southeast Texas, and I think that the region will be in outstanding hands under his leadership. So I would encourage the commission to ratify this appointment. I'd entertain a motion.
I so move, Chairman.
Second.
We have a motion from Commissioner Wainwright and a second from Commissioner Stodgill to appoint, or to approve the appointment of Gerald Brown as Regional Director for Southeast Texas. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Congratulations. Okay, Director, I had asked that we move your report, California Speed.
One more, if you don't mind, with your
Oh, one
permission.
more.
Because now that we have a new regional director, okay, it's left a vacancy, okay, as the Assistant Chief in the Criminal Investigative Division. And we'd like to recommend to the commission for your consideration that Matt Hicks be promoted to the Assistant Chief of the Criminal Investigative Division.
I'd entertain a motion if there are no questions.
I so move.
And I second.
We have a motion from Commissioner Stodgill and a second from Commissioner Wainwright to approve the appointment of Matt Hicks as Assistant Chief of the Criminal Investigations Division. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Congratulations.
Chairman, Commissioners, at this time, I'd like to have Trooper Danny Nunes present the case update. Certainly, the Department of Public Safety has got outstanding troopers across the state that do a wonderful job in terms of detecting, interdicting, and rescuing children. And certainly, Trooper Nunes is at the front of the game. So, Trooper, welcome and thank you very much for taking the time to be here today.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon or good morning. This case is called California Speedball. I'll give you, the speedball is a polydrug mixture of a stimulant, which in this case was cocaine, with an opiate of heroin that may be taken intravenously or by nasal insufflation, which means snorting. Speedballs often give stronger effects than either drug. When taken alone due to drug synergy, speedballs can easily cause a heart attack, respiratory arrest, and death. On January the 13th, I conducted a traffic stop at 1:37 p.m. on a black Ford Expedition for expired registration. Upon contact with the 37-year-old driver, she was identified as Annette Lachey Graves of Florida. Multiple indicators of criminal activity were observed. Graves was traveling from Anaheim, California to Columbus, Ohio, a known origin and destination for drug trafficking. Graves displayed labored breathing and high anxiety during questioning and did not have sufficient luggage for her trip. Upon observing them signs of criminal activity, verbal consent to search the vehicle was received. A subsequent search of the vehicle revealed loose panels with fingerprints and dusty areas. Trooper Nunez was able to put his hand underneath the center console, under the carpet, and could feel bundles. Access to the compartment was gained via the removal of the gear shift control or cover. Modifications were made to the gear shift by raising it so that there would be more room for the compartment underneath to conceal the bundles. The result of the stop was 6,719 grams of cocaine, 2,315 grams of heroin, and 227 grams of THC product. Control delivery during the debrief of Graves by Texas DPS CID and DEA, They were able to gain cooperation from Graves to conduct a controlled delivery. The delivery and search warrant was executed at a residence in Columbus, Ohio. The search resulted in the seizure of 250 more grams of cocaine and an additional arrest. Christopher Michael Washington was charged federally. Two federal charges were brought against Washington for possession of a controlled substance with intent to distribute cocaine and conspiracy with intent to distribute cocaine. Washington received 120 months in federal prison for each charge to run concurrent. Graves was arrested and received 276 days of home confinement and 5 years of probation as a result of her cooperation. Yeah, that's it. Thank you, sir.
Hey, appreciate it. Excellent job, great work, and all you do up there on the I-40 corridor.
Commissioners, any questions?
Good work.
Great work. Thank you.
Thank y'all.
I'd like to tell the commission that I was that good back in 1977. I was never that good, okay? Nor could I be that good. That
All right.
concludes the presentations.
We're going to move on to section 10 of the agenda, reports. Are there any commission members wishing to give a report? Moving on to item B, Chief Whittington, any report from you today? Item C, Chief Auditor's Office. No report. And item D, Division Status Reports on Activities and Action. Any of the chiefs wishing to give a report today? Chief Ballou.
Good morning again, Chief Ballou, Infrastructure Operations Division. Per the Sunset Advisory Commission Staff Report Recommendation 7.1, I'm here today to present to you the annual assessment report on contracting trends and best practices. And before I turn this over to our Director of Procurement and Contract Services, Michael Parks, to present the report, I just want to assure you that the agency continues to comply with all requirements in Government and Administrative Code, State Contract Guide, and the requirements of our oversight agencies as well as our internal policies. It is quite a challenge to balance meeting the mission, which requires us to respond swiftly to eliminating any threats to public safety, while at the same time ensuring we comply with numerous procurement requirements. And because our agency doesn't have any exemptions to fight its first responder mission, you know, it's a tightrope to try to meet the needs of the divisions to perform their operations while honoring all of those requirements. And I want to just thank our Procurement and Contract Services team for being able to seize opportunities to be more efficient and improve practices to meet both needs. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Director Michael Parks.
Thank you, Chief.
Michael Parks, Director of Procurement and Contracting Services. Procurement and Contracting Services is responsible for coordinating and managing the procurement and contracting activities for the agencies. Our efforts are focused on purchasing contracting activities in order to attain the best value for the agency, and while doing it under statutory requirements and also internal policies. Next slide, please. In FY22, we had several best practices. Three that I would like to highlight are the Contract Review Board and Executive Contract Review Board. As Chief Ballou presented earlier, we went through a process of revising the charter, revising the activities associated with it, and worked diligently to ensure that the agency's contracts have complete visibility once it's to the stage, complete visibility through executive management and through the commission to ensure that we're in compliance and purchasing best value for the state. The second item is we implemented a contract management system. The contract management system was acquired at the end of fiscal year 21, and in doing so, we went through the process of consolidating all the repositories, contracting repositories, and we put it into electronic application. And this electronic application is serving the agency well now. Next slide. Two items that I would like to focus on this slide is the agile procurement strategies. Procurement, again, follows statutory requirements in the process of acquiring goods and services. However, there's a little bit of latitude that can and should be used in acquiring these. And as Chief Ballou mentioned, a law enforcement agency, we have some special needs as far as purchasing that makes it challenging, and us needing to do things on a timely basis requires us to modify our procurement process. So we've implemented a lot of strategies that allows us the flexibility while still maintaining statutory requirements. The other item is we did a realignment within PNCS so that we could ensure that we meet division's needs on a more timely basis. One of the critical items that we put in place under this realignment is a compliance and quality control group. And this group reviews the procurement all the way through completely through the contracting life cycle, again, to ensure complete compliance. Next slide. As an agency, we continuously push the utilization of historically underutilized business. As you can see by the stats here, we're above the state average in all areas with the exception of professional services. And we will continue to push for hub utilization. One of the things that is unique with DPS, majority of the state agencies they acquire their hub numbers through subcontracting. DPS, approximately 96% of our hub spend is directly with hubs, so it's not done through subcontracting. And next slide, please. Significant statistics. We awarded 70 major contracts for over $325 million. We continue to manage 280 major contracts, close to $2 billion. And in fiscal year 21, we issued 16,000 POs, which equates to 35,000 lines, and these were valued at approximately $230 million. The emphasis here is that 99% of our purchases were done through a competitive process. Less than 1% were done non-competitive, and non-competitive falls under the category of or emergency declarations and things of that nature. If we exclude those declarations, our non-competitive purchases are less than 0.3%. PNCS is committed to continuing to improve service delivery, ensuring ongoing compliance with all applicable requirements, and attain best value for the DPS in the state of Texas.
There were a couple things I'd just like to expand on today. One is with our non-competitive purchases. One thing I want to point out that is very significant about that is despite the fact that we had multiple disaster declarations that we were able to draw from in order to do an emergency purchase, we still went out of our way to be competitive as often as we could, which significantly cut down on the number of items that were considered non-competitive. Because even though we were buying something under an emergency situation, we were able to, at least informally in some cases, or through a more streamlined process, compete those items out. So we are doing our due diligence to be competitive. The other thing that I would like to point out is if you go back to last year's report, and the full report is in your binder, you'll notice that, and it's probably something we need to include going forward, and we will, that the hub performance is significant because of the significant improvement in hub performance that we've seen as an agency during the last fiscal year. So I wanted to point that as well. And then last but not least, I want to ensure you that it was a very smart use of state funds to procure the contract management system that we are using today. We recently had an audit from the Comptroller of Public Accounts on a select sample of DPS contracts. And what we found out from that audit are primarily we needed the system that we bought because what we're compliant with all of the state requirements. We achieved best value in the contracts that they selected. Where we had findings, it was related to being able to produce documents from files that are, years old to show where we did certain searches and things that the state requires us to do. And the system will enable us to have a single repository for all of those items. It also reinforced the opportunity for the state to update its central technology system for financials and purchases to see a lot of efficiency if they would automate some of those items and store them in the database itself, as opposed to having multiple purchases across multiple agencies for multiple purchases that those agencies just keep, screenshot after screenshot after screenshot and have to store it so they can come back in an audit later to demonstrate that they followed those steps. So I think that reinforced some opportunity for the state to take a look at that as well. And so that concludes our report, unless y'all have any questions for Michael or myself.
Thank you. Very good report. Any other division reports? All right, we'll move on to consent items. Item 11 on the agenda.
Chairman, Chief Bowie couldn't be here today. He was going to give a very brief overview of our recruit classes and recruiting efforts.
So moving back to item 10D, division report from Chief Bowie, which Director Martin will give.
Freeman Martin, Deputy Director, Homeland Security Operations. And this is just a very quick overview. Currently, we have 2 recruit schools going, and as we did in 2021, 2022, we're overlapping schools. So we just had the 1 graduation. We had another recruit class start last week. B 2022 currently has 78 recruits, and C 2022 that just started October 17th has 82 recruits. So roughly, we've got about 160 that are in recruit training right now. We're accepting, next slide. 2023, we're going to have 2 full recruit schools. We're accepting applications for both of those. And here, a later slide, you'll see some numbers of applicants, but it's kind of misleading because they're still open. Actually, 2023, we're completed with the application process for 23. So in short, C school of 2022 and A school of 2023, we had 3,193 applicants, which is probably about half of what we used to see, and that's even after ramping up our recruiting efforts. Last week, we were at the International Police Chiefs Association meeting in Dallas and visiting with our S&P counterparts, colonels from other states, and police chiefs it's a nationwide recruiting crisis in law enforcement. And we appear to be doing, even though we're seeing a lot less applicants, we still have a lot of quality applicants. We're able to fill these recruit schools. And we're much, much better than our counterparts. And actually, we're recruiting, we're stealing a lot of recruits from our counterparts in other states, which you'll see in a slide here in a minute. So 2023, we're planning on having 3 recruit schools. 2 of them you see right here will be full 30-week or traditional recruit classes. Next slide, Sophie. And in our C school in 2023 will be an advanced peace officers class. And what we've done this time that we've never done before, we broke it into 2 parts. The first part is going to be C 2023A for supplemental police officers class. To be accepted in the advanced police officers class, you've got to be a certified Texas police officer because there's not enough time for the TCO requirements to get licensed. So this is a 4-week class that's going to happen immediately prior to C 2023. to allow federal officers who are not TCO certified and out-of-state police officers who are not TCO certified to go through the TCO certification process and get licensed with TCO, and then prior to starting the academy. Next slide. That'll be a 4-week class, and then the advanced peace officer school will be 14 weeks. The initial one is 4, and then the actual academy will be 14 weeks to learn DPS policies, procedures, and how to be a Texas State Trooper. Next slide. And this is the recruiting. This is what I said, the 3,193 for C-22 and A-2023. B, 2023, you see the 564. We're currently accepting applications for that school. Thus far, from out of state and from our federal partners, we have 44 that have signed up for that 4-week class to get TCO certified. And then when we start 2023, there's another 180 police officers who have applied for that are already TCO certified. So, roughly 124 have already applied for this advanced peace officer school. That's just a very quick overview, and we're really doing pretty good in the recruiting as opposed to other agencies in Texas and state agencies from other states. And then one more thing I would say, here recently there were several articles about a mass exodus at DPS. And the numbers were very misleading. I believe it started with a KXAN story where they got information from TCO, and they included special ranger commissions that are they're not DPS employees. Actually, what we've seen is less retirements this year, and it's really a math problem. We can articulate, we can do the math and tell when we're going to have a lot of retirements normally, and it's based on tenure, age, so your years of service and recent pay increases. So we had a class in 1990. And then we had a 4-year hiring freeze. Almost everybody from 1990 classes retired. So in 94, 95, we hired a lot of people. So they're coming up on 28 years. They're in group 1, which means their leave counts towards their retirement. So all of those that came through in 94, 95 are at 30 years, which is what we're seeing some of the retirements. However, we had a pay raise last year. And so that's 1 year of the high 3 under group 1 is based off of high 3. So we anticipate we'll see more retirements in August of 2023, but a lot of retirements in August of 2024. So we're going to keep ramp our recruiting efforts going because we anticipate with our current vacancies and with the anticipated retirements in 2024, we're going to have to do a lot of recruiting in between now and the end. So that's just a very quick overview. And at our next PSC, Chief Bowie will be here to talk more in depth about what we're doing in the recruiting efforts.
Yeah, the issue about retirements and the choppiness of the inflow where you have a hiring freeze from 1990 to 1994 and all of a sudden a bunch of catch up. And now that catch up, which could have been fanned out over a number of years, all happens in 1 year or could qualify to happen in 1 year, I think is a real challenge. And so I think our more recent history of consistently bringing in new classes is important. And I just wanted to thank the legislature and the governor for making sure that we have those resources, have those classes going forward to keep that pipeline going. I also want to comment on the C-2023A class, the law enforcement, the class for law enforcement professionals, people already in the profession. For those who are here today who don't know, everyone who comes into DPS has to go through the academy. These people already have a significant amount of law enforcement. So there's the opportunity to bring in a group of people who already have a significant amount of training, but still need to be trained under our model. And so that's the reason for the abbreviated class. It makes a lot of sense. And I'm looking forward to seeing how that ultimately plays out over time.
Yes, sir.
Any questions?
Yes, I have a question. What are the key factors in driving the downturn in Texas and nationwide on applications, broadly speaking?
Well, this morning we had a leadership breakfast with all of the other state agencies, and it's not just law enforcement. It seems to be every state agency is struggling, and within DPS, I think we're having a harder time with our non-commissioned positions than we are with our commissioned positions. But it just seems to be in the restaurant industry across the board, people are having a hard time hiring and recruiting new applicants. In law enforcement, I think there's a lot of factors. Of course, the summer of 2020 and the civil unrest didn't help. There's so many jobs out there that pay more, better benefits. I think we're thankful to the Texas legislature that we're in the position we're in. When you look at law enforcement agencies in Texas, I talked to several police chiefs and sheriffs here recently where they post 5 vacancies at a sheriff's department and they get 1 applicant. I think there's a confluence of factors, and we're better suited than some of our counterparts, but it's nationwide. It's not a good time to be recruiting for law enforcement, but it's not exclusive to law enforcement either.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to item 11 on the agenda, consent items. I'd entertain a motion to approve the consent items.
I move to approve the consent items.
We have a motion from Commissioner Wainwright and a second from Commissioner Stodchill to approve all items under Section 11 of the agenda, consent items. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Commissioners, if you have items for future agenda, please get those to Sophie or Phil between now and the next meeting. Moving on to item 13. The regular Public Safety Commission meeting is scheduled for December 15th, 2022, and our discharge hearings will be held the next day on December 16th. The Public Safety Commission will now go into closed session at this time pursuant to the Texas Open Meetings Act, Chapter 551, to consider matters authorized to be considered in executive session under Government Code Section 551.071, 072, 073, 074, 076, and Government Code Section 411.0041. The time is 11:47 in the morning.